Welcome to tonight's sleep story. Let's drift into a soothing story together as you begin your journey into a restful and rejuvenating sleep. In a bustling, vibrant market, where the scents of freshly baked bread and spices filled the air, a young man named Liam wandered, his curiosity piqued by the sights and sounds around him. The market, with its lively vendors and colorful stalls, had always fascinated him, yet on this particular day, his eyes were drawn to something entirely unexpected. Beneath the shade of a tall oak tree, nestled in a small corner of the market, sat a peculiar stolid's owner, an elderly woman draped in soft, weathered fabrics. Seemed to be offering nothing but a single item, a copper pig. The copper pig glimmered in the sunlight, its surface smooth and gleaming with a strange luster. It was unlike anything Liam had ever seen. A statue, perhaps, but its form was so intricately detailed, so alive in its craft that it almost seemed to pulse with energy. The pig's eyes, though crafted from metal, seemed to hold an undeniable glimmer, as though they were watching him, waiting for him to approach. Drawn by an inexplicable pull, Liam found himself stepping closer, his heart racing in his chest. The market noises faded, as if the world itself had quieted, leaving only the soft whispers of the wind and the gentle clink of the copper against the earth. The copper pig stood there, its elegant curves and intricate engraving captivating Liam in a way that felt more than just aesthetic, it felt personal. The elderly woman noticed him approach, and her smile seemed to widen, though her eyes remained thoughtful, almost as if she had been expecting his arrival. She spoke softly, her voice like the rustling of leaves. "This pig, it's more than just a figure. It holds a story. But not all stories are meant to be told. Some, like this one, are for those who seek answers in places beyond sight." Liam was intrigued. He glanced down at the pig once more, now noticing its curved tail, its shiny snout, and the patterned markings etched along its back. For a moment, it felt as though the world had slowed, the shadows beneath the oak tree deepening as if they were preparing for something to unfold. He reached out hesitantly, his fingers brushing against the cool, smooth copper surface dot as soon. As his fingers made contact, a tingling warmth spread through him, as though the copper pig were alive, responding to his touch. A spark, faint but unmistakable, ignited within his chest, and in that instant, Liam knew that the copper pig was no ordinary object. It held something, the kind of secret that would forever change the course of his life. Liam turned his gaze to the elderly woman, whose knowing smile deepened. She seemed to understand what he was experiencing. "Not everyone can feel it," she said quietly. "Some will touch it and walk away. Others, like you, will find something more." He looked down at the copper pig again, uncertain but also compelled. Was it an object of wonder, or was it an object of deeper meaning? He didn't know, but something told him that the answer lay in the journey he was about to undertake. He stepped back, lost in thought, knowing that the encounter was only the beginning. There was more to discover. The elderly woman handed him a small note with symbols written on it that Liam couldn't yet decipher. "When you're ready," she whispered, "the pig will lead you as it has for many before." Liam's fingers tightened around the note as he nodded in quiet acknowledgement. The copper pig had ignited something within him, a question that would drive him forward, one that he had to answer. And as he walked away from the market stall, the mysterious glowing pig remained fixed in his mind, a presence he couldn't quite shake. Pulling him into the unknown. Liam woke up the next morning with the copper pig's image still vivid in his mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't just a piece of art or a curiosity. The sense of purpose had been awakened within him, and the more he thought about it, the more he realized that something profound had been set in motion. The note the elderly woman had given him felt almost alive in his pocket, like it was waiting to be opened, waiting for him to unlock its secrets. As Liam stepped out of his small cottage, the air felt different, charged almost. There was a sense of anticipation, as if the world itself was whispering to him, guiding him toward something unknown. His feet seemed to take him toward the market again without much thought, but this time he wasn't aimlessly wandering. He was on a purposeful path, his heart now beating with a rhythmic urgency that mirrored his mind's swirling questions. The village was still waking up, the soft hum of the morning filling the air as the baker's shop began to open, and the scent of fresh bread wafted through the streets. Yet Liam felt detached from it all, as though he was in a separate space, both part of the world and apart from it. The copper pig called to him, and he knew deep down that he could not ignore it any longer. He reached the market again, but the stall with the copper pig was no longer there. The area where it had stood seemed oddly empty, as though the space had shifted with the passing of time. He glanced around, wondering if perhaps he had imagined it, or if it had been taken away. A slight panic began to rise within him, but the note in his pocket kept him grounded. There was something more waiting for him. The copper pig was not a mere object, it was a guide, and it had led him here, to this moment, this quiet understanding that his life was about to change. Determined not to give up, Liam approached the stall owner who had been beside the copper pig the previous day. The old woman wasn't in sight, but an assistant stood behind the counter. Liam asked, his voice betraying a hint of urgency, "Do you know where the copper pig went?" The assistant, an unassuming young man, smiled softly and pointed toward a narrow alley at the edge of the market. "It was moved to a new place just down the path. They say it's waiting for someone like you to come and find it," he said. With a knowing look, Liam's pulse quickened as he thanked the assistant, his steps growing faster as he headed toward the alley. The road was quiet, lined with shadowed buildings, the early morning light filtering in through cracks in the structure, creating a mysterious atmosphere. The air felt cooler here, more intimate, like the world had shifted slightly, just enough to make this path feel separate from the rest of the world. Liam felt as though he was walking into an entirely different reality, one where the rules of the everyday did not apply. At the end of the alley, the space opened up into a small courtyard, and there, standing tall and proud under a vine-covered archway, was the copper pig. This time, it seemed larger, more dominant in the space. Its surface glistened in the dim light, almost inviting Liam to approach. It was no longer just an object. It felt like something alive, something that was waiting for him to make the next move. Liam stood in awe for a moment, taking in the scene. The copper pig had transformed into a symbol of something far more than it appeared to be. It seemed as though it had always been here, always meant to lead him to this place. The moment felt sacred. He was about to unlock something far greater than mere curiosity. Understanding began to fill his chest like a quiet, unspoken truth. This was the beginning, and he was ready to take the next step. He reached into his pocket and unfolded the small note the woman had given him. It was fragile, the edges worn from handling, but the symbols were still clear. The intricate lines telling a story Liam couldn't yet decipher. He held it up to the light, his fingers trembling slightly with excitement. There, on the note, were the same symbols he had seen engraved on the copper pig's back. The connection was clear now. With a deep breath, Liam stepped closer to the copper pig, the air feeling heavier around him, as though the world had paused in anticipation of his next action. It was time to move forward. Time to unravel the mystery that had been set in motion by this strange encounter. Liam stood still before the copper pig, his heart beating in a rhythm that echoed in his chest. It felt as though the world around him had faded, leaving only him and the pig. The courtyard, once bustling with the usual hum of life, now felt empty and distant. A subtle energy seemed to vibrate from the pig, almost as if it were alive, inviting Liam closer. The air was still and charged with anticipation. He could feel his fingers tingling as if responding to the very metal of the pig, waiting for him to make his next move. Liam reached forward, his hand trembling slightly as he brushed his fingers against the smooth copper surface. It was cool to the touch, but the moment his fingers made contact, a faint warmth spread from where he touched, traveling up his arm. It was gentle at first, but as his fingers lingered, the warmth grew. A strange sensation washed over him. He felt as if he was being pulled into the very essence of the pig, as though it were guiding him into something greater. He closed his eyes for a moment, overwhelmed by the sensation. As he opened his eyes again, the world around him seemed to shift. The courtyard, once so familiar, now appeared slightly different. The colors more vivid, the shadows deeper. The light filtering through the vines above seemed almost alive, pulsing with an energy he couldn't quite explain. In that moment, Liam realized the copper pig was not just an object. It was a gateway, a portal to something beyond the physical world. The symbols on the note he had received the previous day began to make sense, as though they were connecting in his mind, forming a path, a language he needed to understand. The wind, which had been still, began to stir. It was soft at first, a gentle rustling of the leaves around the courtyard, but soon it became more pronounced. A whisper carried through the air, as if nature itself was speaking directly to Liam. The voice in the wind was faint, but it was unmistakably clear. It seemed to say, "Follow the path, and the truth will reveal itself." The words echoed in his mind, reverberating in his chest. He understood more clearly than ever before that this was no ordinary object he was dealing with. The copper pig was a guide, a key to something profound. Liam stepped back, his breath shallow as he tried to process the experience. He reached into his pocket and unfolded the small note once again. This time, the symbols didn't look like random markings. They were alive in a way, almost as though they were shifting on the paper. The words seemed to be rearranging themselves, forming patterns that felt familiar, yet foreign. Liam couldn't decipher them fully, but he could feel their meaning deep inside him. The wind whispered again, this time more clearly, "It is within you to see the truth. Trust what you feel." The message was simple, yet profound. It was not about finding answers outside of himself, but about trusting the inner voice that had always been there. The copper pig was merely a guide leading him back to his own understanding. The sense of connection was growing stronger now. The symbols on the note and the engravings on the pig were no longer just abstract concepts. They were part of him, part of the path he had been walking all along. It wasn't about decoding the mystery, it was about feeling the mystery, embracing it fully. Liam now understood that he wasn't here just to solve a puzzle, but to unlock a deeper understanding of himself. As the wind carried the message, the copper pig's soft glow intensified. Liam's mind was clearer, his thoughts more focused. He knew that the next step of his journey was to trust what he felt, not just what he could see. The answers were within him, and the copper pig was merely a catalyst, a tool to unlock the potential he already carried. He didn't need to search for the truth outside, it was always there, just waiting to be uncovered. Liam stood still for a moment, letting the wind wash over him, his thoughts beginning to align with the energy of the courtyard and the copper pig. He felt no fear now, only a sense of calm acceptance. The mystery wasn't something to be feared, it was something to be embraced. With a final deep breath, Liam turned his attention to the path ahead. The journey had just begun, and he was ready to follow where it would lead, knowing that every step he took would bring him closer to the truth. Liam stood still, surrounded by the peaceful quiet of the courtyard. His heart had slowed, and his breath was deep and steady. The whispering wind and the stillness of the copper pig had left him with a profound sense of peace, but also with a lingering question. What was he meant to do with this newfound understanding? The courtyard, which had once felt like a simple space in the world, now seemed vast, stretching beyond the walls that confined it. There was an almost infinite quality to the stillness, and in this stillness, Liam felt a deep, subtle connection to everything around him. The trees, the earth beneath his feet, the sky above, and the copper pig before him. The world was full of meaning, but the key to unlocking it, he realized, was not to search for answers, but to immerse himself in the quiet presence of the moment. He closed his eyes again, allowing the silence to wash over him like a gentle wave. Everything around him felt alive, even in its quiet repose. The faint rustling of the leaves, the soft whispers of the wind, it all felt connected to him, to his thoughts, to his inner world. There was no need to rush or force understanding. The answers he now knew weren't something to be grabbed. They were something to be invited in, to be allowed to flow naturally into his life. As he stood in the soft, dappled light, a new sense of clarity began to form within him. And the wind spoke again, this time clearer than before. There is no need to chase after answers. All the answers you seek are already within you. You only need to listen, to trust what is already in your heart. Liam's mind, which had once been filled with questions and confusion, now felt clearer. He began to understand that the copper pig was not meant to give him direct answers or to solve all the mysteries of life. It was a symbol of something deeper, something about being present in the moment, about finding answers in the spaces between thoughts and in the stillness between breaths. The courtyard around him felt like an extension of his own mind. Symbols on the copper pig began to shift again, but this time Liam didn't feel the need to decipher them. Instead, he simply let them exist without forcing them to make sense. The copper pig, with its intricate patterns and detailed carvings, was perfect in its imperfection. It didn't need to be solved. It simply needed to be experienced. Liam took another deep breath and felt the ground beneath his feet, solid and unmoving. It was as though the earth itself was supporting him, grounding him in the present moment. The wind rustled the leaves, and the light seemed to shimmer and pulse in time with his breath. He was no longer searching for something outside of himself. He was starting to trust the process, to trust the flow of life. The copper pig was a guide, not a solution. It had shown him the way to inner peace, to understanding that the answers lay not in the external world, but in the quiet moments within himself. Liam stood there for a while longer, allowing the sense of calm and clarity to fill him. The journey was not about arriving at a destination. It was about learning to live with the questions, to embrace the mystery without feeling the need to solve it. The copper pig had led him to this moment, but now it was time for him to walk the path on his own, trusting the wisdom that would unfold naturally in its own time. As the sunlight shifted, casting long shadows across the courtyard, Liam felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey he had begun. The copper pig had opened the door, but it was up to him to walk through it. He took one last look at the pig, its surface gleaming softly in the dimming light, and turned to face the path ahead, filled with uncertainty, but also with peace. The mystery was no longer something to be solved. It was something to be lived. Liam stood in the courtyard, the copper pig before him, now nothing more than a silent witness to his inner transformation. His breath was steady, each inhale grounding him deeper into the present moment. The stillness around him had become a companion, one that spoke to him without words, without urgency. The whispering wind that had once guided him now felt like a soft, comforting presence, reassuring him that he was on the right path. He looked up at the sky, where the first stars of the evening began to twinkle, slowly emerging as the light faded. The night was peaceful, almost timeless, and as Liam stood there, he felt a sense of belonging that had been absent from his life for as long as he could remember. It was as though the universe was not something to conquer or solve, but something to live within, to experience in its full mystery. The copper pig had shown him that there was no final answer, only a continuous journey of acceptance, where each moment held its own value. Liam took a step back, leaving the copper pig behind, and began to walk slowly toward the end of the courtyard, where the path stretched into the darkness. He didn't know where it would lead, and for the first time, he didn't feel the need to know. It didn't matter if the answers were out there somewhere, waiting to be found. What mattered was following the path, trusting it, and understanding that each step was a part of a much larger unfolding. The earth beneath his feet felt solid and supportive. Every step a gentle reminder that he was connected to the world, and yet at the same time free to move at his own pace. The air around him was calm, almost as though the world was holding its breath, allowing him to find his rhythm. He wasn't running or searching. He was simply being present with the world, present with himself. Liam had always been in such a hurry to achieve, to succeed, to find answers. But now, walking down this quiet path, he realized that the rush had always been his own creation. Life did not need to be rushed. It was never about reaching the destination. It was about how one walked the journey, how one embraced the moments in between. As the path curved ahead, the familiar shapes of the trees and the soft rustle of the leaves in the night wind seemed to welcome him, like old friends who had been waiting for him to arrive. The copper pig, still etched in his mind, was no longer a riddle to solve. It was a symbol, a constant reminder that there was nothing to find, because everything Liam needed was already within him. The copper pig had unlocked a door inside him, a door to inner peace, and now that peace was his to carry forward. The moon began to rise above, casting a soft, silvery light across the landscape. Liam's thoughts were quiet now, no longer filled with questions or doubts. Instead, there was a peaceful acceptance of the unknown, a quiet joy in the act of living the journey without the pressure of needing to control it. He didn't know where this path would lead, but he knew that he was no longer afraid. He didn't need to figure it all out. He was enough, exactly as he was, walking along this road, breathing in the stillness of the night. The journey, he now realized, was the answer itself. Liam stopped for a moment and closed his eyes, feeling the breeze on his face, the cool night air swirling gently around him. His heart beat slowly and steadily, and in that moment of peace, he felt a profound connection to the world and to himself. When he opened his eyes, the path ahead seemed brighter, not because of the moonlight, but because he had finally allowed himself to trust it. With one final, contented breath, Liam took another step forward, knowing that the journey itself would reveal everything he needed in its own time. As Liam continued down the winding path, the world around him felt like a distant memory, and the weight of his past worries seemed to melt away with every step. The crisp air wrapped around him like a gentle embrace, and the moonlight shone soft and inviting, illuminating his way. The more he walked, the more he realized how little he truly needed to seek answers. Everything he had been looking for was already inside him, waiting to be acknowledged. The journey had never been about the destination. It was always about how one learned to walk the path. He stopped for a moment, turning his gaze upward at the vast sky above. The stars scattered across the dark canvas like tiny pinpricks of light. The silence of the night enveloped him, and in that silence, he found a peace that had been foreign to him not long ago. The world, with all its chaos and noise, was now a distant hum, and he felt as though he had entered a space where only stillness and clarity existed. Liam continued walking, each step grounding him deeper into the earth, connecting him to something greater than himself. The copper peg, now a distant memory, had unlocked a new way of seeing the world, not as a puzzle to solve, but as an experience to be lived fully, without fear or hesitation. The lessons he had learned on this journey weren't about understanding the mysteries around him, but about understanding the mysteries within. Every leaf that rustled in the wind, every shift in the moonlight seemed to speak to him, not in words, but in feelings. He no longer needed explanations for the beauty of the world around him. He could simply be with it. The earth, the sky, the trees, they were all part of him, and he was a part of them. The boundaries that had once existed between self and world began to dissolve, leaving only a deep connection to everything he encountered. In the distance, the path ahead seemed to stretch endlessly, but instead of feeling lost or uncertain, Liam felt an overwhelming sense of contentment. He didn't need to know what lay ahead. The future, like the journey, would unfold on its own. There was no need for him to force anything. The wind whispered through the trees, and Liam smiled softly, feeling like he had finally become part of the rhythm of the world. The rest of the journey would be the same, trusting, accepting, and walking forward, step by step. His feet found the rhythm of the earth beneath him, moving forward with an effortless grace. His heart, once burdened with the need to find answers, now beat with calm and peace. The act of walking itself had become a form of meditation, each step a reaffirmation of his belief that he did not need to chase anything anymore. He had found peace not in the discovery of some final truth, but in the quiet acceptance of the present moment. The path began to curve, leading him deeper into the forest, where the trees grew taller and the air became thick with the scent of moss and pine. He knew that this was not the end of the journey, but merely a new chapter, one that would continue to unfold as long as he stayed present and trusting. As Liam walked, the stars above continued to shine, their soft glow a reminder of the infinite beauty that lay both inside him and outside in the world. He was part of this vast universe, no longer a seeker of answers, but a celebrator of the journey. The questions he once had seemed insignificant now, like distant echoes in the wind. All that mattered was the peace he felt with each passing moment, the deep gratitude for simply being. The world was his, and he was a part of it, a silent witness to the beauty and mystery that existed in the stillness, in the space between thoughts, in the quiet moments of acceptance and understanding. Liam continued his journey, the path now stretching before him like a quiet river, meandering through the heart of the forest. The air was cool against his skin, and the faint scent of pine and earth surrounded him, grounding him deeper into the world. The whispers of the wind through the trees felt like a soft lullaby, and every step he took seemed to sync with the natural rhythm of the world. He felt as though the forest, the sky, and the earth had all come together to hold him gently in their embrace. As he walked, the sky above deepened into a velvety night, the stars now fully visible in their eternal dance across the heavens. The light from the stars seemed to pulse softly, casting a faint glow that illuminated the path ahead, guiding him deeper into the forest. The moon was a pale crescent, its light diffused through the branches above, creating delicate patterns. On the ground, the quiet beauty of the night was so peaceful that Liam could almost feel his soul exhaling, letting go of all the tension and restlessness he had carried with him for so long. Each breath he took felt deeper, more fulfilling, as though he was inhaling not just air, but the very essence of the universe itself. The pace of his steps had slowed, not out of exhaustion, but out of a deep connection to the stillness around him. There was no rush, there was no destination to reach. The journey itself had become the purpose, the unfolding of life with all its beauty, its quiet mysteries, and its gentle rhythms. Liam stopped for a moment and closed his eyes, letting the sound of the wind, the rustle of the leaves, and the faint chirping of nocturnal creatures wash over him. His heart beat slowly and steadily, in sync with the natural world. He could hear the soft hum of the earth, the pulse of life that existed beneath his feet. It was as though he had become part of something larger, something timeless. His thoughts had quieted completely, leaving only the present moment, full of peace and acceptance. In the silence of the night, Liam felt the weight of the world lift from his shoulders, as though the burdens of life, his doubts, his fears, his constant striving had been released. He didn't need to figure anything out anymore. All the questions that once consumed him seemed irrelevant now. The answers were not to be found in the external world, not in the symbols or the mysteries of the copper pig, but in the quiet space between his thoughts. The truth was found in the stillness and the acceptance of the present moment, and in the peace that arose from simply being. The wind whispered again, but this time it didn't need to speak to him in words. The message had already been received, and it was clear in the calm of the night and in the stillness of his heart. All was as it should be. There was no need to seek, to chase, to understand. All that Liam needed was to live in the moment, to accept the unfolding of life without attachment or expectation. The journey itself was the gift. As Liam stood in the soft glow of the moonlight, he realized that he had finally let go of the constant need to control, to solve, to figure things out. He no longer felt the weight of the search for meaning. The meaning was here, in the forest, in the stars, in the wind, and within him. He was part of it all. There was no separation. The path he walked had no beginning and no end. It was simply the path of life, a path of experience, acceptance, and peace. With a final deep breath, Liam exhaled softly and began walking again, his steps lighter than ever. The night around him seemed to deepen, but it didn't feel isolating. Instead, it felt like a safe embrace, inviting him to rest, to let the stillness fill him, and to trust in the quiet rhythm of the world. Every step forward felt like a step deeper into surrender, into the understanding that life is not something to be figured out, but something to be lived gently, patiently, and without forced thought. As he walked, the path seemed to open before him, a winding journey that led toward the unknown. Yet, for the first time in his life, Liam didn't need to know what lay ahead. The unknown wasn't something to fear. It was simply the next moment to be experienced with openness and acceptance. Liam continued down the path, his footsteps soft on the forest floor as the moon above bathed everything in a serene silver glow. The quietness of the night surrounded him completely, almost as if the entire world had paused to give him space, to breathe and be. There was no rush, no urgency, only the gentle flow of time, moving at its own pace, without demand or expectation. Every leaf that brushed against his arm, every twig that cracked beneath his feet, felt like a part of the larger rhythm of the world, perfectly aligned with his inner world. He no longer needed to analyze the path or measure the distance he had traveled. He simply walked, surrendering to the unfolding moment. The journey was no longer about reaching an end. It was about experiencing the journey itself, each step. A discovery in its own right. The breeze, now cooler than before, carried a faint scent of pine and damp earth, grounding him further into the present. The soft whispers of the wind seemed to speak to him, reminding him of the lesson he had learned in the courtyard. There was nothing to solve, nothing to chase, only to be present. His mind, once constantly active, now felt quiet, still-like. The landscape around him, he no longer felt the need to question. The answers were within him, flowing through him with every breath thought as he walked. The path seemed to open up before him, revealing a vast, quiet meadow. The grass swayed gently in the breeze, the moonlight casting long shadows that danced across the ground. The beauty of it all, the stillness, the silence, was overwhelming, and Liam felt a deep, unspoken gratitude for simply being part of it. There were no answers needed here. He wasn't looking for solutions. He was simply living. The meadow stretched out, and Liam stopped at the edge, taking a deep breath. He had come to a place of understanding where the past and future were no longer relevant. The moment was all that mattered. The trees, the earth, the sky, they were all woven together, interconnected in a way that Liam could now feel deep within his bones. This wholeness, this connection to everything around him, was the most profound truth he had ever known. The wind blew through the grass, carrying a soft melody that felt ancient, timeless. It wasn't a song with words, but a song that resonated deep within his heart, reminding him that life was not about searching for meaning. It was about experiencing it. Every sound, every sight, every sensation was a piece of the larger puzzle that he was already part of. The meaning was not hidden, it was simply there, in everything, all the time. Liam closed his eyes for a moment, allowing himself to sink deeper into this newfound state of being. He had released his need to chase answers, to fix things, to make sense of the world. He now understood that life was never meant to be understood in the way he had imagined. It was meant to be felt, to be lived fully in each moment. This was the true path, surrendering to the flow of life without resistance. He opened his eyes again and took another step forward, feeling the soft earth beneath his feet, the moonlight on his face, and the cool breeze in his hair. Every step felt like a gentle unfolding, a release from the burden of striving. In the distance, the trees seemed to bow in reverence to the night, their leaves shimmering in the breeze as if in silent approval of his newfound peace. The path before him was no longer a mystery to be solved, but a journey to be experienced. Each step was an invitation to continue, to trust in the unfolding, to walk the path without needing to know where it would lead. Liam was no longer seeking to understand the world. He was living it, embracing each moment with open arms, knowing that the truth lay not in the destination, but in the very act of the journey itself. As the wind softly whispered around him. Liam smiled, feeling a sense of complete peace wash over him. The journey had never been about answers. It had always been about learning to live with the mystery, to trust the unknown, and to be at peace with the silence between the answers. The copper pig had been a guide, but it had only led him to this, the quiet knowing that he was part of a much larger world. A world of infinite peace and possibility. Liam continued along the winding path, the moonlight now casting a soft glow that seemed to wrap the entire world in a blanket of tranquility. The air was cool but comforting, the scent of pine and damp earth filling his lungs with each deep breath. His mind, once cluttered with countless questions, now felt like a still pond, undisturbed by the ripples of confusion or fear. There was no longer any rush, no need to seek the answers to life's grand mysteries. He had surrendered to the process, to the rhythm of the world that had always been unfolding around him. And for the first time, he felt fully present. The night had deepened, and as he walked, Liam became aware of the silence of the world around him, but also the silence within. It was a peaceful silence, not empty, but filled with the whispers of nature. The rustling of the leaves, the distant chirping of insects, the gentle breeze, all of these sounds, though soft and subtle, held a deep, resonant meaning that Liam could now feel in his bones. It wasn't just the world speaking. It was the world communicating, sharing its quiet wisdom. As the path continued, he saw a small clearing ahead, where the trees opened up to reveal a breathtaking view of the night sky. The stars above were countless, scattered across the heavens like diamonds, their light faint but constant. The vastness of the sky seemed to mirror the vastness within him, a vastness he was only just beginning to understand. The realization that he was part of this infinite expanse, this eternal rhythm, filled him with an overwhelming sense of peace. He wasn't separate from the world, he was connected to it, as much a part of the flow of time and life as the stars above. He stopped. At the edge of the clearing, the soft grass under his feet grounding him once more. Looking up at the sky, Liam realized that there were no answers waiting for him out there. The sky was not something to be figured out, just as the world wasn't something to be controlled. The truth was not hidden in the stars. It was not something external to be found. It was already inside him, in the quiet of his heart, in the stillness of his mind, and in the way he moved through the world. The copper pig, now far behind him, had served its purpose. It had guided him toward this understanding, but it was never the source of the answers. It was simply a symbol, a tool that had led him to the realization that peace and clarity could only come from accepting the present moment, from living without the need for external validation. Liam closed his eyes and took a long, deep breath, feeling the cool air fill his lungs. The rhythm of the world, the pulse of life, was all around him, within him. It was no longer about seeking the meaning of it all. It was about being part of it, moving with it, trusting it to unfold as it would. He didn't need to force anything or understand everything. Life was a mystery, yes, but it was a mystery to be experienced, not solved out. The wind shifted gently, as though nature itself were acknowledging Liam's understanding. It wasn't a voice this time. It was simply the sensation of being alive, fully immersed in the beauty and mystery of the world. The sky above, the earth below, the trees and the stars, they were all one, connected by the same rhythm, the same timeless flow. Asterisk as Liam stood there in the clearing, his heart full and his mind at ease. He felt something that could only be described as gratefulness. It was the kind of gratitude that didn't require words, that didn't need an explanation. It was a deep, silent appreciation for the life he had, for the path he was walking, for the connection he felt to the world around him. The answers would come not as revelations or discoveries, but as moments of understanding that arose naturally, like the stars in the sky. With a final deep breath, Liam smiled. The journey was not over, but it was no longer about reaching an end. It was about embracing the journey itself, with all its mystery and beauty, and allowing life to unfold in its own time. The stars above continued to shine, steady and constant, and for the first time in his life, Liam felt a deep sense of peace and belonging. The world was no longer a puzzle to solve. It was a song to be sung, and Liam was no longer a seeker. He was simply a participant, living the melody of life as it played before him. Liam continued along the path, each step now feeling more intentional, more anchored. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but Liam no longer felt the need to control it. He was not running towards a destination, nor was he searching for answers. Every step, every breath felt like a soft, rhythmic dance with the world around him, a slow, fluid movement that moved through him as much as he moved through it. The quiet song of the night continued to play. Its melody carried on the wind and whispered through the rustling leaves. The moonlight bathed everything in a soft, comforting glow, making the world seem timeless, as though it existed outside of linear time. The stars shimmered above, steady in their places, just as they had been for millennia. Everything in its place, moving with a natural grace. as though the world was a grand performance, one where every element played its part without haste or hurry. Liam was no longer an observer of the world. He was now part of it, flowing with it. His every movement seemed to align with the world around him. The wind swirled, the trees bent with the breeze, and even the earth beneath his feet felt alive, as if it were breathing along with him. Liam felt deeply connected to this rhythm, as if the very fabric of life was moving through him, coursing through his veins with each heartbeat, with each step. There was a profound peace in it. The world was not separate from him. He was woven into it, connected at the deepest level. With every inhalation, he felt the vibrations of the universe fill him. Every exhale felt like a release, a letting go of all that no longer served him. It was not just the physical act of breathing. It was an emotional release, a spiritual letting go of the burden of seeking, of striving. The weight of needing to know, to understand, it all faded into the distance. Now, all that mattered was the movement, the flow, the rhythm of the world as it carried him forward. The trees around him seemed to open up, revealing glimpses of the world beyond. The path ahead continued to unfold before him, but instead of feeling overwhelmed, Liam felt a deep sense of trust. He didn't need to know exactly where he was going. He only needed to trust that the path would reveal itself in due time. The world, the universe, life, they were all part of this silent dance, one that Liam was finally learning to step into without resistance. The moments of stillness, the quiet in between spaces, were the spaces where truth resided. And in these spaces, Liam found peace. The moon now hung directly above, its light casting long shadows on the path, and the world seemed to fall into perfect balance. Liam stopped for a moment, taking in the beauty of the night, of the calm, the stillness, and the eternity that seemed to pulse around him. It wasn't just the night that was eternal, it was the rhythm of life itself, the pulse of the universe that continued without end, without need for answers. Everything moved, and everything was exactly where it needed to be. With a contented sigh, Liam continued walking. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he no longer cared. The mystery was no longer something to be feared or solved. It was something to be experienced, to be felt in every step, in every breath. As he walked, he was no longer separate from the world he was living it, moving through it, a part of its timeless flow. Liam's footsteps had slowed, now almost imperceptible against the soft earth beneath him. The path continued to wane through the forest, but his sense of urgency had dissolved completely. Each step felt like a quiet surrender, an invitation to stay present, to feel the steady rhythm of life beneath his feet. With each breath, the tension he had carried for so long, whether from his past, his questions, or his need for answers, began to fade into the background of his consciousness. The forest around him seemed to embrace him in its gentle stillness. Shadows from the trees stretched lazily across the ground, their forms elongated by the faint light of the moon. It was as if the world itself had entered into a state of profound repose, waiting for nothing, yet full of everything. The very air seemed charged with peace, as though the forest, The earth and the stars above had all paused to share in the quiet moment of Liam's journey. He felt the warmth of the earth beneath him, a subtle reminder of how interconnected everything was. The ground seemed to pulse with a quiet life force, as if every grain of dirt, every root, every stone was in its perfect place. It was all part of the same flow, the same rhythm that Liam had come to accept. He was not separate from the world. He was woven into its very fabric, just as stars were woven into the sky. For the first time, Liam realized he had become part of something much larger than himself. He no longer felt like an isolated individual trying to find his way. He was a part of the universe's dance, moving with the world rather than struggling against it. There was no longer any need to search for deeper meaning or answers. Everything was as it was meant to be. The peace that had eluded him for so long was now his constant companion. The moonlight, cool and soothing, bathed the entire forest in a soft silver glow. Liam raised his hand, feeling the gentle breeze brushing across his skin. It was as if the wind was caressing him, an old friend, reminding him that he was exactly where he needed to be. There was no rush, no hurry, no destination to reach. Life was unfolding in its own time, and for the first time, Liam felt a sense of calm in the flow of it. There was a stillness in the air, but it wasn't empty. It was full, vibrant with the quiet sounds of nature, the rustle of leaves in the wind, the soft chirping of distant insects, and the faint creak of tree branches all created a symphony of sound that filled Liam's senses. It wasn't a loud symphony. It wasn't meant to be heard with the ears. It was the kind of symphony that could only be felt deep in his chest, in his heart. It was the symphony of life, gentle and eternal, always present if one knew how to listen. Liam stood there for a while, his mind clear, his heart at peace. He was no longer trying to solve anything, nor was he seeking any grand revelation. All the answers he once longed for had faded into the silence. There was no need to understand the complexities of life. He had learned to trust that the mysteries of the universe would reveal themselves in time. He only needed to keep walking, to keep being present, and to trust that every step was already part of the larger journey. As the night continued to stretch out before him, Liam felt his senses deepen. The forest, with all its subtle sounds and shifting shadows, no longer seemed like something out there. It had become part of him, just as he was part of it. The boundaries between himself and the world around him had dissolved, leaving only the awareness that they were connected, inseparable in the quiet rhythm of life. With a deep, steadying breath, Liam smiled softly. The path ahead was still unknown, but the uncertainty didn't cause him any discomfort. The unknown had become something he could embrace, not with fear, but with a sense of wonder and curiosity. There was no need to force the answers. Life would reveal itself in its own time. The journey was unfolding exactly as it was meant to as Liam took another step. He felt as though the universe itself had opened up to him. There was no longer any weight on his shoulders, no urgency to move faster or to understand more. The Stillness around him was a reflection of the stillness within. The world and the self were finally in harmony, flowing together in perfect unison. Liam continued his journey through the forest, his pace steady but gentle. The night sky above, filled with the faint glow of stars, seemed to open wider with every step he took, inviting him to remain present in the world that lay around him. The path ahead was no longer an unknown challenge to overcome. It was simply a moment in time, a space to exist in, just as the stars above existed, without the need to justify their place in the cosmos. With every step, he felt a profound connection to everything that surrounded him. The earth beneath his feet, the gentle breeze against his skin, the quiet rustling of the trees, all of it was a reflection of the world's natural rhythm, a rhythm that he was now a part of. The separation between himself and the world had dissolved completely. It wasn't about seeking meaning anymore. It was about living the journey, letting the moments unfold without interference or resistance. The air was cool and crisp, the scent of pine filling his senses, and the soft light of the moon touched the world with a gentle grace, casting shadows that seemed to dance like fleeting memories. The sound of the wind through the trees, the distant chirping of crickets, and the occasional flutter of wings were all part of the same timeless song that Liam was now listening to with full attention. This was the symphony of life, and for the first time, Liam wasn't trying to interpret it. He was simply allowing it to wash over him. As Liam walked deeper into the forest, he felt a sense of wonder about the simplicity of it all. The questions, the struggles, the endless search for answers, they no longer mattered. He had spent so long trying to solve life, and now he saw it for what it truly was. Not a puzzle to be solved, but a dance to be embraced. The rhythm of the world wasn't about finding the right answer. It was about learning to move with it, to follow its natural flow. His steps became lighter as the world around him seemed to breathe with him, a gentle pulse that connected him to the earth beneath his feet and the stars above. It was in this very rhythm that he found peace. There was no longer any pressure to get somewhere, to reach a conclusion. Every step was simply a step in the unfolding of his life, a continuous flow from one moment to the next. Liam stopped for a moment to take in the view before him. The forest opened up slightly, revealing a quiet clearing where the soft glow of the moon made the world feel even more serene. It was as if the very land had paused, holding its breath, in reverence for the journey he was on. Time, as he had known it, no longer had a grip on him. Everything was eternal in its own way. The trees, the sky, the wind, and even the quiet stillness of the night. Liam stood there for a while, feeling his heart beat slow in time with the world around him. The peace he felt now was uncheckable. It wasn't a fleeting moment. It was a state of being, the peace of surrender, the peace of simply living without the need to control, to rush, or to solve. He didn't need to chase anything anymore. Everything he had ever sought was already present in the world around him. Peace was in the wind, in the earth, in the soft rustle of the trees. And now it was in him too. He took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill his lungs and with it, the quiet assurance that he was exactly where he needed to be. His mind was clear and his heart was light. The journey ahead, no matter where it led, was part of the same flow. There was no rush, no need for urgency. The unknown was no longer something to fear, it was simply the next step to take with open arms. Just as the world had always taken each moment with grace, with one final glance at the stars above and the earth beneath him, Liam smiled softly, feeling grateful for the path he had walked and the peace he had found along the way. He had learned to live the melody of life, trusting the flow of the journey and finding joy in every step. And as the night sky stretched endlessly above, he knew that the journey would continue, and he would continue to walk it, not in search of answers, but in full acceptance of each moment,